everybody's attention. We are about to start off, and I just wanted to introduce our wonderful moderator, Roberta Romero. She's a woman who needs no introduction, and we are just so excited to have her speak to you today.
Thank you so much, and welcome to the first panel discussion of Seattle's vibrant ethnic media. Now, when we first had this idea, we were dreaming very big, and we thought maybe we can get about 50 people. And look at the response, so big that we had to move the venue. Over 200 people have responded to this, so thank you. Obviously an interest and a need for this type of discussion. And it's one of the first times, so be patient with us because it's going to be very fluid and we're hoping to get a lot of information out. Information that you can actually use. Discussing an issue is one thing, getting the information that you can apply in the real world is what we want to do here today. So, Latina Creative Agency, the Communications Hub at Fuse, Washington, the Sightline Institute, and Washington Can welcome you to this event. And we want to thank our generous media partner, Crosscut, and of course, Impact Hub, who accommodated us at very short notice for this space. So thank you. And a little bit of housekeeping before we begin. We will have a robust panel discussion, followed by a Q&A from you. If you have questions, please use the note card provided at check-in. Write your question down. They will be collected throughout the program. Just hold it up and somebody will come get it. And then we'll ask the questions after we're done with the panel. Contact information for many of Seattle's ethnic media outlets, rates, best practices are available in our digital toolkit online. The link is on your program, or if you're 20th century, you can get a hard copy, whatever you like. Bathrooms are located in the back, you can find those. So, history and definition of ethnic media. We had to think long and hard about this. Just briefly, ethnic media is media fashioned with a particular ethnic minority group or ethnic minority community in mind. The rising American electorate, unmarried women, people of color, and millennials, is a significant game changer in this year's important upcoming election, making up the majority of this year's voters for the first time ever. How do we understand this ethnic group? And why is ethnic media so much more important now in these times? You can see it in the numbers. Media professionals took note last year when Spanish language broadcast Univision finished first among broadcast networks during July sweeps in two highly sought after demographics, 18 to 49-year-olds and 18 to 34-year-olds according to Nielsen. This demonstrates the power of ethnic media nationally. More importantly, it represents money. Now people will pay attention because that's what people are looking at as well. Here in Washington, people of color make up an exponentially growing share of the population. We are expected to reach 50% of the population in Washington state by 2050. While the growing Spanish-speaking population is the largest, making up 6.7% of King County residents, other communities are also growing. More than 10% of King County's population speaks one of a variety of Asian languages, and that's more than 200,000 people. There is a tremendous amount of potential in reaching these communities, and ethnic media is their trusted source of information, tailored to the cultural and linguistic preferences of their consumers. For example, in a 2012 Nielsen poll, 91% of African Americans stated that Black media is more relevant to them, and that's where they go for their information. The question becomes, how do we effectively utilize these tools? How do we reach more communities? And how do we communicate a message that is relevant and in language? We are here today to explore our local ethnic media market, reveal resources, both media and consultants, provide best practices, and empower those in the room to begin to answer these questions in their own work and in their own communities. Now I'd like to introduce our panelists. I'll begin with Chris B. Bennett, co-publisher and editor of the Seattle Medium newspaper. He is also a board member of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, a federation of over 200 Black-owned newspapers across the United States. Teresa Jones, multimedia sales executive at KUNS-TV, Univision. She is also an advisor to the Washington Hispanic Media Association. Amalia Martino, co-founder of Latina Creative Agency. This Latina-owned agency is helping private corporations and public entities reach diverse markets in the Puget Sound and beyond. Montoya, publisher of El Mundo newspaper. She is also a board member of the National Association of Hispanic Populations. Quezon, editor of the International Examiner. He has previously served as editor for the Honolulu Weekly and the Hawaii Independent. Joaquin, City of Seattle Ethnic Media and Communications Specialist. He has previously served as a communications specialist for the Washington Low-Income Housing Alliance and contributed to various community news outlets in Seattle. Sian, former contributor and board president of the International Examiner. She has 14 years experience in public relations and journalism and is now account supervisor at C+C. And Mohamud Yussuf, editor at Runta News, journalist, trilingual journalist who has been publishing Runta News for the past 15 years. Thank you, and we're going to begin. So starting with the big question. We'll start with the big picture, the what and the why. So, I call these the no-duh questions. No duh. But we need to say it out loud and get a platform so we know what we're all talking about at the same time. So you might have the answer to these, or you might think you know, but we're going to hear from these panelists and get their perspective from the years that they've spent in this market. So why should we care about ethnic media? And let's start with Joaquin. Put down your phone. Why should we care about ethnic media, Joaquin?
There are, what we've seen and what I know from personal experience is that there are folks in communities all around the country who will only go to get their news at that one place, at Seattle Chinese Post, at the International Examiner, at Runta. And they're not reading the Seattle Times, they're not reading the Seattle Weekly, they're reading news that's in language and that speaks to them and that has articles and covers information that is relevant to them that most mainstream media companies and most mainstream media outlets and even community outlets aren't covering. And so if you want to reach immigrant and refugee communities, you have to buy ads, you have to approach the editorial team and pitch stories, you have to build relationships with the publishers, staff members, editors of ethnic media outlets. You just have to. And typically a lot of people will go by like a 6-point rule, 7-point rule. You see something 6 or 7 times before you really think about it and maybe take action. And so it could be reading that Facebook post, seeing that bus ad, seeing it in the ethnic media outlet that you typically go to every week, and then seeing it again on Facebook, and then hearing a family member talk about it. All those put together, help ensure that the outreach is being done so that folks who need to know about these services and programs know about them and understand them and can access them. And so making sure that that you're having that in-language outreach through ethnic media outlets is absolutely crucial.
Amalia?
I totally agree. Everything he just said. Plus, in Washington State, Latino population is almost at 1 million. And I can tell you it's doubled from 2000 to 2010, the population doubled. So this is a monolingual, bilingual, multilingual population. It's multicultural, it's bicultural, and how are you going to reach them if you're only speaking to them in one language? So it's very, very important that you're doing in language, and even when you're doing English language to reach the Latino population, that it's culturally competent, that it's relevant, that it works.
Martha?
There's a misconception that it has to be on the language of origin, and yes, that's part of it. But I think more importantly, it has to be very targeted on the culture itself. I'll give you one example. Target, the retail store, had 4 chairs at the entrance for eating food. A family, well, our Hispanic families are 10 or 12 that go shopping. So they expanded the benches to be cultural sensitive. It's the same Target, but with a bench that is 12 instead of 4. So it has to be cultural sensitive. So if they didn't change Target, they changed the benches.
Thank you. My next question, what types of audiences can communicators reach through ethnic media? Let's start with Sian.
Sure, thanks. I think that the targets that you can reach through ethnic media are very varied depending on what community you're talking to and what outlet you're talking to as well. And so generally there are a lot of misconceptions about who are the types of people who are reading this, and maybe if I'm working on a cause that maybe they just don't care about. But there are, they have been polls that show Latinos actually care about climate change more than white audiences. And Asians are the fastest growing electorate on the West Coast and have enormous amount of purchasing power, which is great for advertisers as well. So I think there's a lot of misconceptions that can be cleared up among anybody who's doing a campaign, thinking about an ethnic media buyer, pitching a story, and who exactly you're going to reach.